Welcome everyone to another storm of Fireside Yarns. Here with me, I've got Dave.
What up, Vinno?
Hey, buddy. Different episode tonight, isn't it, mate? We're not having a serious chat. Well, to a degree we are.
Heavy topics to heavy music instead.
So yeah, guys, tonight we're going to do an episode on our top 5 bands that influenced us one way or another. So, Dave, what direction were you heading down, man, with your 5?
Well, we're going for bands, right? So I wanted to leave out because more than half of the music I listen to would be probably hip hop, and then I would listen to a lot of traditional music, like folk music and old rock and roll, that type of stuff. But metal to me was like the first music to grab me and like control me life a bit, and like it changed the way I dressed. It changed the group I was in. It changed our lifestyle, and it brought us into different social circles. And yeah, man, music's, it's cheesy to say, but it's like the soundtrack of your life, man. You know, like I don't know where I'd be without music. And if we're talking about bands and metal, or not just metal, but alternative punk, like those types of music, man, it's very important to me. And I've got like 5 bands that kind of send me down each little genre, rabbit hole and era, I guess. So that's how I approached it. That's it. And as well, I guess you've been in a band. You'd probably be very different. You'd be approaching this episode a little bit differently, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had a bit of we had a broad topic, didn't we? We didn't sort of nail it down on it. We didn't want to, and so the path I've gone is sort of bands that have led me up to playing into that heavy music and influencing, like wanting to play in hardcore bands and metal bands and stuff like that. So that's the way I looked at it. I mean, you're dead right, man, with what you're saying. It's a soundtrack to your to growing up as well, like your childhood. You know, I don't think there's anybody there that doesn't hear a song and it takes them back to a certain stage in their life. That's just sort of the magic of music, isn't it? Like, without sounding too soppy and shit, but
no, but it is. It occupies our emotions. Like when you're a kid and you're finding yourself, and you put those headphones on, and this was back, kids. This was before the internet was really very prevalent, or you know what I mean. You had to have a CD and you had to listen to an album, and it was. For me, it was tapes. Like it would be very like if you wanted to skip a song, you had to find it, so you really had to know an album properly, and it kind of forced you to see the artist's vision a bit more, you know. But again, it was so special collecting my CD and my tape collection. I fucking loved it, and it was very important to me. And again, like I like playing music, and it's because of metal that I'm even into music at all. But I was in bands, you know what I mean, where me and a couple of my mates would get together and we might jam a bit, but I never lived it, and I was in a proper band like you were. So I'm very interested to see how the music you listen to affects the way you play and how you record, particularly with other people, you know what I mean?
Well, it's that influence that you get from those bands as well. I suppose that builds for anybody that plays, like that even just plays guitar or like mucks around or whatever. The music you listen to early on is definitely an influence. But let's jump in. What's your first band? Dave's first band, what is it?
So I was a little kid, man, and all my mates, we love West Coast rap. We're all about fucking Tupac and NWA and Warren G and, you know, all the Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, all that shit. We loved it, all right? But I don't know how I can't remember exactly. I might have even been through wrestling. I think Limp Bizkit fucking played Rollin'. It might have been Rollin' or something like that. Was like the fucking a WrestleMania song or the Undertaker's return song or some shit. And I remember just fucking loving it. I just fucking loved it. And I was only about 12 at the time. And I went, and there was the first band that I was like, I'm buying all their albums. And I bought all their albums. And I would say Significant Other, $3 bill, and even Chocolate Starfish in the hot dog flavored water. They're fucking amazing albums. I will fight and argue with anyone to the death about those 3 albums. I think if you don't like Limp Bizkit,
straight away, get in those comments and argue with Dave about
if you don't like Limp Bizkit, you're not fun of parties. You're not. If you don't, oh, I don't like Limp Bizkit, it's like, well, I don't like you. You know what I mean? Or it might be that you're ignorant to the biscuit. You know, yeah, you might be dumb for the dust. But I'm telling you, Limp Bizkit, great DJ Lethal. You know what I mean?
They shaped the generation, didn't they?
They are fun, they are bounty, they are hardcore. And I remember it was Henry Rollins actually said that if he grew up in that era, in that 90s era, mid to late 90s, and he heard Limp Bizkit, fucking he'd be like, that's my shit. It's kind of molded, I should say, fucking hip hop, metal, even a bit hardcore, kind of like, because it was a lot of breakdowns, a lot of
it was the riffs, wasn't it? It was definitely the riffs.
That 7-string guitar shit mixed with the hip hop. DJ Lethal was the House of Pain, you know, Jump Around. He was the DJ from House of Pain and La Coca Nostra, and he's the fucking DJ of Limp Bizkit. And yeah, John Otto, everyone in that era, and yourself with drums knows John Otto was a fucking, or maybe you didn't get into the Bizkit, maybe you should, but John Otto was a fucking great drummer, and Wes Borland was just a crazy guitar player and an artistic fellow. But man, I love Limp Bizkit, and again, it got me into metal. I was wearing backwards New Era hats. I had chains.
Was it red? Red?
No, it was black. I didn't have it red. And it was not for. It wasn't because I didn't want to be Fred. I wanted to be Fred. Okay, I was actually shaving my face, trying to get sideburns as a 12-year-old. I was like, oh, come on. I want to have sideburns coming out of this hat. Just like Fred. And fucking, but you know what I mean? And through that, you Slipknot, Deftones, fucking Korn. It was a good era. Yeah. But I remember me mate, Mark Brown, his big brother was like a Matrix motherfucker. Like he was one of those metalers who you looked up to. And he was very mysterious, and he seen us little metalers, and he came up to us.
Hang on. When you say Matrix, just paint the picture for people. Is that the big black trench coat?
That is a trench coat, New Rock boots, scaffold ear piercings, you know, and the metal t-shirts and the chains and like that type of neo motherfucker, you know. And it was like, look at this motherfucker. But he came up to me and the lads like, look, I'm gonna make you a mix. And he made me 2 mixes. And he made me the Metallica mix and metal mix. And the first song I played was 4 Horsemen by Metallica. And seeing the different progressive riffs coming together, different riffs molding, coming back and forth, and how tight they were. And then the guitar solos, and Hetfield's voice was like speed punky trash. Like this had opened up a whole new era to me. But I'll throw it over to you right now. Yeah. Where did you start? Where's your musical start, I guess? Or how did you approach this?
So I approached this from bands that really sort of started to channel me into that love for punk and fast, heavy music. I'd grown up a lot with. My dad he's got an amazing vinyl collection, man, like Deep Purple, obviously Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, all of those classical albums on vinyl. And I grew up listening to that. And that's sort of growing up in the country, I hadn't heard too much mainstream music at that stage. I hadn't grown up with all that old stuff. And I suppose the first band that I heard that really grabbed my attention was Pennywise. My older brother had got album Straight Ahead, and I was in my room and he had that playing in his. And initially, I remember thinking, "What the fuck is this?" Like, because it was just completely different to me. But then the more I listened to it through the wall with him playing, and I just went, holy fuck, like this is awesome. Like listening to the drums specifically, like Byron McMacken, man, is and always will be a hero for me, like just a freak in my book. The vocals and just the rebelliousness of it, I suppose. But that album and Pennywise, and they will always be, man, like, yeah, my grassroots band that sort of led me in the direction for going into the alternative music, I suppose. So that was mine. I still love classical music. Like when I say classical music, it's like that classic rock.
AC/DC and yeah.
Well, even like Dad had an array of everything, man. Like I had pretty good library there to go to and listen to it anytime I wanted. It's awesome. So yeah, and I suppose that's where that shock factor came in for Pennywise and the alternative music was it was somewhat what I was used to, but then wasn't. You know, it was a completely different. It was flipping everything on its head. It's the best way I suppose I can describe it. But
it hits you, doesn't it? It's like I was saying with Metallica. I knew metal, and I thought I knew metal, or I thought you think you know what you like or what's pleasant to your ear, and then something comes along, you're like, fuck,
yeah,
oh, that's good. I want more of that. What's that? Wow, whoa, look. I didn't even know this existed, and it becomes your thing. It's like, fucking, I got to let people know. And kind of like you were saying earlier, you growing up in a little Hunter Valley town or even on a farm. You know what I mean? There's not a lot of these subcultures aren't really, like, they're there, but you haven't got there yet. You know what I mean?
Well,
in Dublin.
The other thing was, like at primary school and that the music that the kids were listening to there was like country, Lee Kernaghan, that sort of stuff, which that wasn't my thing. Never was. And there was 50 kids in total at my primary school, man. So there wasn't wasn't a big music culture, so to speak, you know.
That's the same everywhere, really. Like I was in Dublin, and we were getting it, because we had band T-shirts on, and we had fucking spiky hair, and we'd fucking crazy shit, like the metal scene back then in the early 2000s, like 2001, 2. Most kids and rough people in Dublin were listening to hip hop, or they were listening to dance music was the big shit, like dance, you know, fucking techno stuff and Prodigy, and then there was Oasis and
like
Blur
Sandstorm.
Yeah, I actually found when I came to Australia that there was more of an alternative scene, because because skater punk was kind of big here, Offspring was big here, like, you know, you were into Sublime, and like there's a and as well, your bass music was like AC/DC, and like dads were into that type of stuff. I didn't have my dad was more into Elvis, Shawaddy, Bay City Road, like he was a poppy dude, really, and then the classic-y stuff. But my mom was into Black Sabbath, because her brother was in a drummer. I should show you some of his stuff sometimes, but he was in Black Sabbath tribute bands and all. But so she kind of came up that way, and as soon as she seen me into Metallica and stuff, again, I delved into Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, all the more classic stuff as well. But Sabbath really grabbed me too. What out of your dad's collection do you think was like, that's a fucking, like, did that, when you went back and looked at his stuff, think, fuck, this is a good band?
I suppose my favorite will always be Deep Purple.
Yeah. Riff lords, man.
Well, what the thing that kicked it off, right, was, do you remember the movie Twister?
Yeah, with Helen Hunt and fucking May. He only passed away in a couple of years.
You know that part where they're chasing the Twister, and the crazy rocker dude goes, "It's a wonder of nature, baby," and just blasts the song through the speakers on his. Yeah.
Was that not Philip Seymour Hoffman? I think. Yeah. But anyway, wicked movie, man.
Fucking hell, man.
And that was and then did you hear that riff, or did
Yeah. So anyway, we were sitting there going, "That's a cool song," and Dad went, "Oh, I've got that," and went and whacked that on the record player, man. And we were. I don't think my youngest brother was born at that stage, but there was like us three boys just fucking living it, and I had hair then too, so like just
you could rock it.
It was cool. So I think that for like that will always have that warm memory for me.
Connects people for sure.
Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Yeah, oh man, they're one of the best bands ever. Absolutely. Ever. Like, and there's not, and they're another one, kind of like Limp Bizkit, in that if someone says I don't like Creedence, I'm like, there's not one Creedence song you like, and they're like, no, I'm like, well, get the fuck out of here.
Someone says they don't like it,
nah,
fucking kick them in the head.
That's an overhand right, at least. You know what I mean? That's you gotta take your licks if you don't like music if you don't like that, and you're absolutely. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but they just underrated for how good they are.
Oh man, and
unbelievable.
Yeah, and that's the sort of music that I grew up with. And, it was cool. Like I didn't miss out on anything that I see in that aspect, and yes, and
helped if anything.
Oh shit, man, that influenced my passion for drumming and all that. I didn't know. It was only later in life, that you sort of start to pay attention to the likes of like John Bonham, man, and the really good drummers in that era. As a kid, you just you hear that beat and you go, oh, shit, that sounds cool. I want to do that. So,
out loud and fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then the older you get, the rhythm starts to grab you, doesn't it? You start to appreciate a lot more. But at the same time, like listening to Pennywise or those early Metallica albums, there's something about being young and that type of music grabbing you at an age.
That's right.
Oh, and it is for young people, I guess. Now we can look back on it. I wonder if we could get into those bands now. Do you think people out there listening that haven't heard some of these bands that we're going to talk about more, do you think they could get into that now? Do you think you have to be wrapped up in like a teenage angst to really appreciate it?
No, I think if you've had that angst, like you talk about, you can relate. I think someone that, just say like you're into EDM, or those that electronic music, and you never really listen to metal, you might find it difficult to get into. Saying that, I think the older you get, the more mature you get more of an appreciation for different types of music. Well, I do, and I know plenty of people that do as well. Things that they previously would have, as a younger, might have gone, oh, I'm not listening to that, that's crap. They find themselves actually giving it a go. Once you get older, I don't know.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. And it might be, I find, if I hear a band for the first time and it doesn't hit me right, I'm like, I'll write that band off. I'll be like, it's not for me. But I might have heard the wrong song at the right time, at the wrong time. And then one day I might go, who the fuck's that? And they're like, that's this. And I'm like, oh, that's why people love this band.
Yeah.
And then you're at the right moment in your life where you can let it take you. And like a certain album, man, Metallica Ride the Lightning. I remember being a little fucking boy in my room and taking down fucking Snoop Dogg posters and Eminem posters and Dr. Dre, the Chronic posters, and putting up me Metallica posters. And then I just sit down with me Walkman and just fucking listen to it, fucking Ride the Lightning from start to finish to the end. And you'd be daydreaming about your own music videos, because there was no music videos for that type of music on TV. Again, Metallica ended up becoming a lot bigger and more mainstream, at least in my circles. But no, it's just unreal. Yeah.
Who'd you have?
So yeah.
Who'd you? Let's keep the list moving. Who'd you go as number 2?
Well, Metallica. So number 1 was Limp Bizkit, and then it was Metallica. So through Metallica, I found bands like Megadeth and Testament and Sepultura and Anthrax, and I really stayed on that thrash path. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is the type of metal I like. I didn't really like the, that like even though Sepultura is a bit like that, but I didn't like Cannibal Corpse. I didn't like Napalm Death. I didn't like any of that shit. But I'd go far as to say like Exodus and Venom and like all the old trashy bands, you know, and then obviously more classic stuff like the British new wave stuff like Diamond Head and Iron Maiden and Motorhead and even King Diamond and Merciful Fate and all that stuff. So I like that, and that's probably as deep as I went. But Pantera grabbed me.
Yeah, dude.
Pantera, something about Pantera, I was like, whoa, that's the sound. That's okay. That's some shit. That's the perfect amount of heavy. That's some trash shit. Particularly if you go back some fucking Cowboys from Hell, but it's also some groovy shit.
Yeah.
Like they had that groovy shit, and they also had that powerfulness from power metal that they kind of started off in their first couple of albums, you know, when they were kind of a bit glammy. But their EPs. But man, when I heard those two albums, Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display of Power, they were the next level for me. The next level, you know. And so you're humming now. So you're a lover of Pantera, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was just saying. Yeah, I hadn't really heard much of Pantera and Metallica until you sort of moved over and you showed us, and I was like, fuck, this is, yeah.
I repped Pantera. When I came, I remember moving to Singleton, and that was because I was, like I said, I was getting into these bands and hanging out in certain areas. When I was 12 and 13, I was getting pissed in Dublin City in Central Bank. And that was all it was about. It was about the music and getting smashed and trying to live that metal, alternative, punk, hip-hop lifestyle. Everyone was there. Skaters, spray painters, metalers, everyone. So when I moved to Singleton, I was in my Pantera element at the time. And that's all I was playing. I had the shaved head. I even shaved my head when I first moved there because I wanted to be like Phil, you know. Fucking I loved it. I had that Washburn guitar. Remember I had the Dimebag guitar? I ended up selling it to Tobes, man, because I had to, when I was moving back to Ireland, that was my favorite fucking guitar. As a Dime, was it a 331 or 333 or it was a beautiful guitar. But I loved Pantera. I was obsessed with them. So did I show you Pantera? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, man. I hadn't.
Oh, I'm happy about that. Then
yeah,
it's an honor. That's an honor.
Because what was that, year 8 or year 9 that you came over?
I think it was the start of year 9 or the end of year 8. I can't remember.
Yeah, because I was writing I was writing that punk stage then, and I suppose everyone was listening to the electronic music and a bit of everything. Hixie was there. He loved his AC/DC, man. So that was...
And Steve Earle, Copperhead Road.
Yeah.
Hixie likes a lot of music. Hixie
does, man. But he had not long come from Orange, and like I'd heard AC/DC and all that sort of stuff, and they were cool. And he was right into that. And then, but yeah, I was well and truly into my punk music and stuff then. And then, yeah, when you came over, and I hadn't heard Pantera at all. I'd heard Metallica. The first Metallica song I heard was One, and it was because I stayed up late one night watching Rage. You remember Rage?
Yeah.
And
One's the only they've only a handful of music videos, Metallica, and One was one of them.
Yeah, and that was I remember seeing that and going, yeah, that was sick. Like that was fucking cool. But and that stage, that was, I suppose, the heaviest band that I'd heard. But yeah, I remember the first Pantera song was Cowboys from Hell, and then Cemetery Gates. On that back oval, man, when we used to play touch football on the basketball court.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah.
Right beside, rubbing near the monkey bars where we'd smoke. Out near that tree, you know, and you'd hold the smoke like that behind your back, so it didn't have any fucking smoke. You'd hold it behind your back.
5 of us lined up behind the tree so the teachers couldn't see.
Fuck, Miss Neach is coming.
Yeah.
Miss Neach.
Still
man,
fucking dragons, but no, yeah,
man, that Cemetery Gates and Cowboys from Hell, man. First off, that album's amazing, but Cemetery Gates for me. I remember when I was leaving Dublin, we would like sing that song. Me and my group was like, you know, lads get together and on the piss. songs get sentimental, but that's another one of those lay down in your bed, listen to that shit and change your life songs.
Well,
but
that was what I did. Like when because I remember burning that, like getting it, borrowing it, burning it, that album.
Burning albums, fuck yeah. I miss it. I miss making mixes.
Yeah, fuck, dude.
Fuck, I've only 80 megabytes. How the hell? Which song? I can't have fucking Freebird on there. I can only have 5 songs.
Don't get me wrong, man. I love Spotify. I love the freedom that you've got. But yeah, I suppose that is just us being that nostalgic, that era, you know, getting a CD and burning it. But yeah, I remember laying in bed with my Walkman. Oh, my Discman, sorry. Well, that's what he said. And listening to that, and yeah, Cemetery Gates going, yeah, this is fucking cool. I definitely did stay down that punk, but I mean, I didn't have them on my list, Metallica or Pantera, but
look, they're generic as well. It's like they're not the band. They're the bands that get you into the bands. You know, like I love Metallica, and I'll always put Metallica or Black Sabbath. Who I kind of skipped over, but they're one of my bands who changed my life.
I mean, we could have gone.
I could do a whole episode on Sabbath, and we probably will, Firesiders, because they bring the fire, right? But I picked Metallica because they gave me Megadeth, they gave me Sepultura, you know what I mean? They gave me those bands that they kind of introduced me to that side of metal that I really appreciate.
Yeah,
you know, that fucking down picking, palm muting, power chord and shit. You know, that Hetfield shit. And again, yeah. But then who? So you got Pennywise, right?
Yeah. So
then who did you move into?
My second one was AFI, actually, and that album specifically was Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes. So some boys up the road that we were really good friends with, that's where we they got my brother into punk, and that was where I sort of went down that pathway. We're hanging out there one day, and I heard the leading song Part 2. And I went, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And they gave us one of the albums, which was Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes, and it was nothing like I expected. It was, and I suppose it's very early. People may disagree with me here, but the very early hardcore, like fast yelling vocals in your face, and nothing like what they are now. But I loved it. That for me was like, holy shit, this is raw. This is something else, and I loved it. And that, I suppose, following on from Pennywise with that, the clean vocals in Pennywise, but it was fast and in your face. And then AFI with Davies, just raw vocals, sort of flipped it on its head again, or opened up the other pathway of, oh shit, what is this? And that album, man, we did it when we were editing last week's episode, actually. I had that album playing in the background and had to stop for a few minutes because I was like, oh fuck, I haven't heard this song in years. And yeah, it took me back, and I still love it. Like, it's a great album, and I suppose that influenced me in the regards of heading down that hardcore path, hardcore punk and all that. It was a big influence. That was the gateway, I suppose. And as I said, there's nothing like they are now. I haven't heard too much of them, or the new albums. But AFI for me is always going to be one of those bands that, yeah, they were a starting point for me. So,
well, look, I like how you mentioned there. It's like, oh, like those first few albums, like they're nothing like they are now. We kind of feel like we have to apologize for our favorite bands because of how they turn out, right? Like with Metallica. So if I'm going to talk about Metallica, I always feel like to justify putting them as my favorite, I have to isolate those first 4 albums and maybe some S&M Garage Days, Death Magnetic, Hardware. Like, yeah, you have to. I feel like I have to isolate them because they've produced some, and I don't blame them, but they've went away from the music that I kind of fell in love with.
Yeah.
about them because they've changed so much. They changed so much, and they tried to come back. And
I would argue that it's not you justifying you liking that band, but bands like Metallica and these bands that have been around for so long, right? And they've got such a broad spectrum of styles, I suppose, as they've transitioned and as they've matured and developed. I look at it as that you're identifying, or you're picking that particular part in their career or that particular style that they did that you enjoy. So, it's not necessarily sort of justifying when you like it.
But there's different types of Metallica fans. Do you know what I mean? Like when you last that long and you experiment and the changes that they made, you have different people. And again, it's because it's part of their staying power and how good they are, that they're able to have different generations latch onto them at different times. Now, I think I was lucky that I was introduced to Metallica the way I was through their first 2-3 albums. Was how my neighbor and his big brother ushered it into me. If I'd have heard Enna Sandman first or Sad But True or something, they might not have clicked to me. I might have written them off that, no, don't give me a Metallica mix, mate. I know what they sound like. They're not my style, But the fact that he shocked me with, I just wonder, and the fact that they changed so much, and when I was catching up with the albums, I'm like, well, I don't really like this. I don't like fucking Load and Reload. Like, there's maybe 2-3 songs that I'm like, all right, that's kind of a good song. I like it, but I'd never listen to that band. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be like, and the way they changed their sound really annoyed me. But that allowed me to bury myself into Megadeth, who I felt I was like, oh, here's, so it sends you again down that track of finding that style of sound again. But I figure
from a band perspective, you've got to change, you've got to adapt, and I think that's something that a lot of people forget or maybe don't realize. So, the example I'll use here is Parkway Drive. Like, their earlier stuff and stuff that I first heard is obviously a lot different to now. And you've got a lot of critics that go, oh, no, I won't listen to them, I won't go to their shows because they're not what they used to be. I'm fucking oath they're not. Like, if they were still the band that they started off being, then they probably wouldn't be where they are now, headlining festivals and that sort of stuff, because you've got to evolve with the times. And, the older people aren't going to keep going to shows, so you've got to draw in those young people again, don't you? You've got to change, you've got to adapt. So,
I guess I think for yourself you do it. I don't think you do it for the audience, because you have the likes of Motorhead. They do the same shit. Well, now Lemmy's dead, but they did the same shit. Or AC/DC did the same shit up until I remember Black Ice came out. I haven't listened to it after that, but it was the same stuff. Iron Maiden, they did the same stuff. Like, there's certain bands that do that. Rolling Stones just do their back catalogue, I guess, but they experimented a bit as well. But I think with metal and alternative music, because people get into it in their angsty side, they're less appreciative of when they switch and change. Pop artists can change all the time. Rock and rollers can change all the time. Like, although I suppose Elvis, people love their different Elvises, don't they? Are you an Elvis fan? Yeah, I love Elvis. Oh man, he would be on here if we weren't kind of making it about metally alternative. Although he should be on it. I'm up there with Elvis. I'm fucking 68 comeback Elvis. I'm 1950s Sun Records Elvis. I'm fucking Vegas Elvis. I love them all. I'm gospel Elvis, man. I'm a atheist, but I will fucking listen to Elvis sing Peace in the Valley to me. You know what I mean? Like,
he's one of those voices, and like you were saying with your dad growing up with it. Like you growing up with your dad listening to him, you've got that tie there. But, I love Elvis, man. I think he's just, if you can't appreciate Elvis, then you can get
one song.
Like,
he's heavy. You look far back and bluesy. If you like blues, if you want to hear some blues singing, you want to hear some country singing, you want to hear some gospel, you want to hear some powerful ballads, he's there for you. He's there for you.
About that era,
Rockabilly.
it was the barriers, pushing those barriers, you know, with the, and that can be another episode altogether about the Beatles, especially, man, like, and Rolling Stones, the things that they had to do to progress music to where it is now. You know,
Well, they were laughed at. Yeah.
And,
originally,
they
Not
were
a mainstream until the
ridiculed.
kids loved it.
Yeah. So, like, those guys had, when you look back on it, the courage that those guys had and the willingness to be different. Yeah.
They're experimenting outside of their culture as well. Yeah. So if you look at the likes of the Rolling Stones, they were completely obsessed with American blues. So much that they named themselves after a fucking Muddy Waters song.
Well, you look at,
I think it was a Muddy Waters song.
A lot of those English rock bands, man, a lot of them were influenced by blues.
Animals, all them.
Yeah, man. But the thing was, and I saw this on a documentary, and it was really cool. I'll have to try and find the name of it. But you know, a lot of those English rock bands, they took the blues and they made it their own in the form of rock and roll, and then they sold it back to the Americans. And it, you know, the way they were in the documentary they were talking about it, I was like, holy fuck, yeah, no, like they did. But
the Americans were trying to copy it, like them, you know, they were like, "Oh, we'll make the monkeys, motherfuckers."
Yeah.
You know. Now, like, I love that British inspiration from the blues. Again, that's Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath were like a hippie band that wanted to be bluesy, that found a little niche that exploded. You know what I mean? But they were inspired by blues. If you look at the chord progression, the solo scales and style of Tony Iommi, and had not been for his fingers getting chopped off by a fucking guillotine, before they're fucking recording their first album with those fucking thimbles he made on his finger and that sound, man. I could go down a Black Sabbath trail now with this. Yeah, they were so inspired by blues. They were a blues band called Earth, I think it was, before that, when Ozzy got them together. So like you were saying before, all those British bands kind of took what, and again, those African American blues artists, they just took from before them in gospel and sped it up a little bit, or took chord progressions from folk and but they really made it their own. But again, sold it back to the Americans in this package, and then the Americans are kind of feel like they kind of heavied it up, right?
It's interesting, yeah. The influence on
although the British metal kind of started the Americans off too. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Because there'd be no Metallica if there wasn't a Motorhead or a Diamond Head, or you know what I mean? Those European British new waves.
Another topic altogether. That's so. Who you got as three? That's like you've mentioned Black Sabbath and that. Who have you got?
Sabath, Metallica, Limp Bizkit, Pantera. That's 4.
So you're up to 4. Oh,
I'm up to 4, man. You're what are you? Pennywise, AFI. So you got 2 more from AFI.
I've only mentioned 2, so my third.
Yeah, so you're AFI now, and that's kind of moved you into.
So you got Pennywise, AFI, and then I went to Social Distortion. So, you know, only talking about that bluesy stuff, to me, that was, I don't know, once again, people could argue that with me, but there was a different sound altogether, and a nice chilled out, but very raw vocals. I don't know, it was, I don't know, the first song I learned to play on drums was Don't Drag Me Down by Social Distortion. So I suppose that was my gateway. You know, I heard that first drum beat at the start of that song, and I went, fuck it, I want to play that. So to me, that's that why they're on the list. But the specific album was why I like White Noise. If you haven't listened to that, fucking get onto it, because a lot of people might remember Social Distortion from Guitar Hero. The song Story of My Life was the one actually that featured on there. So, but, yeah, I was never a big fan really of that song. They've got heaps better others in my opinion.
See, you're apologising for it, like a Metallica fan for Enter Sandman. Yeah, like that's not my favorite song, but
yeah, well, it's not really apologising. It's just not your.
You're letting them know. You're letting them know I'm not that kind of fan.
Right. So number 4 for Dave.
For me,
yeah,
what done for? I've Limp Bizkit, Metallica, Sabath, and Pantera.
Right.
I've done it. You're. So let me guess now. You're Pennywise, AFI, Social Distortion, and.
So the next one for me, and this was where I first started getting into hardcore, and the person that showed me was Zooey, Reese Leelander. I was working with him, and we had this boombox set up in between we were mechanics. We had our own hoist was set up next to each other, and he brought this boombox in, and he put Miles Away as a band, an Australian band from Perth. And he put self-titled on, and it was cool. I was listening to it, and then This Heart came on, the song This Heart, and that was it. I was fucking sold, mate. They're a melodic hardcore band, but they are fucking unreal. And at that time as well, Miles Away for me got me through a lot of shit, and still to this day, would be front and center for them any day. Miles Away is the shit, and that was my gateway into hardcore at the time as well. Reese and I were playing in our first band called Crab Claw. I think we've still even got a couple of demos getting around. It was terrible, but yeah, that was that era where we first started playing in a band, playing hardcore, getting into that scene and getting involved there. And yeah, Miles Away is my number 4.
Are we going 5s now then, I guess?
No, I suppose.
Are we going to go 5s?
Yeah, what's Dave Giles 5? What do you got?
So for me, I was like, all right, I've got Limp Bizkit in there as new metal, but I've got Black Sabbath is that early classic metal rock. And then I've got Metallica and Pantera, who are kind of trash and then post-trash. I'm like, well, fuck, I want to represent punk, Yeah. And I was like, how do I do that? Like, obviously, I was upset again through me mom, Pistols, got the Pistols album.
Yep.
I loved the Sex Pistols, and that sent me down that British Clash and fucking Exploited, Cockney Reject, Stiff Little Finger, you know what I mean? All that kind of, even up to Dead Kennedy style stuff, you know what I mean? That sound. And then on the American side, New York Dolls, Ramones. I loved all that, but I wanted to kind of and then I started thinking about Dropkick Murphys, and I was thinking, well, what got me into all that kind of, what's something I can bring in that Celtic punk and punk together and have one band as the band for that, and I have to pick the Pogues.
Oh, yeah.
And so I actually got obsessed with the Pogues, and I even met Shane MacGowan, who will actually in post-editing put the picture of me and Shane MacGowan meeting each other here. Vinno can put that in post.
Yeah.
I met him when I was working at HMV in Grafton Street, and he came in and he was smashed out of his head, drunk, so drunk. And I was like, wow, he really is drunk. And even on the desk in that picture when I'm meeting him, he's got a can of Druid cider and this weird bottle of milk. But in the milk is this brown stuff. So I don't know what he was drinking. But he was so smashed. And he's kind of known for being this. The Pogues are a punk band. They were. Shane MacGowan was roadieing for the Sex Pistols, but they were Celtic. Look, they were traditional folk, punk, and I knew a lot of these songs growing up in Ireland. Pogues were huge. They'd done obviously Irish Rovo with the Dubliners and all, and obviously when I moved to Australia, hearing that old sound from home was beautiful. Yeah. So hearing all those songs punked up a little bit or sped up, and the Pogues would do those traditional songs, and then a lot of also original music that Shane MacGowan wrote was beautiful. From fucking they've got about 6 albums. The first 6 albums of the Ramones, not the Ramones, the Pogues. Just listen to these albums. and they've kind of got traditional music from all around the world, but it's basically Celtic or Irish folk music, but punked up, and that kind of brought me into then listening to the Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly, Descendants, and all those kind of Celtic punk bands, because they would play those old songs. They would play the Fields of Baton Roy and Rocky Road to Dublin, and because that's part of the folk culture, is continuing the songs on from it's not seen as covering. Yeah, you're keeping these songs and stories alive.
We're keeping the culture alive through.
That's right.
Generations, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of wrapped the Pogues up as my favorite punk band and my favorite kind of trad punk band as well, mixed up together. But again, they're a comforting sound to me, because they're a sound of my childhood. Because again, the Pogues were huge in that folk revival with the Dubliners and all. They were just well respected, but they're also it hit me at that age too, when they were that rebellious fucking Rum Sodomy in the Lash is just one of the best albums ever. But I think at the end, what we should do when you do your 5th album is we go through our 5 each and recommend one album, although it might be hard, by each band. And then for people just to have a little listen. But without ado, Vinno, who is your number 5?
So I tossed and turned on this one for a while, and I couldn't make the distinction between the two. So I've actually got a mix of 2.
6. Oh, cheating. 6 bands. I could have put 10, but no, I'm only joking. It is hard. It's hard.
But these were bands that. So when I got into hardcore, like obviously I was attached immediately to that melodic side of it. But these were bands that, and this is where the Metallica and Pantera influence came in. Bands that got me into the heavier side and opened up another doorway for me, and I suppose got me into playing into the heavier music, and really got me into metal and that as well. And that was Terror and Death Before Dishonor. I've been given a mixtape similar to what you were talking about before. Reese gave me a mix CD, and on there was Terror and Death Before Dishonor, along with other bands, but those 2 stood out the most. And I just, once again, I heard those songs or like the mix that he had on there, and just went, holy fuck, like, yes, this is what I want to be playing. This is what I'm interested in. This is cool. So, and at that time, you're young, rebellious, talking about the angst and anger, and it was that music really took me down that pathway. But it opened up a whole portion of my life that, the people that I've met over the years through hardcore and playing shows and doing that, fantastic people, awesome experiences. And those last 3 bands were really the ones that took me down that pathway. And I think if I hadn't heard those and Reese hadn't introduced me to that, then, I wouldn't have had the experiences that I have had. And it's been a fucking good time as well. Obviously, I don't play in bands now at the moment. I'd love to get into it later down the track, but kids and
right now you're taking the world by storm via Fireside Yarns podcasting.
Yeah, focused on career and work and family life, and loving that now. Obviously with COVID it doesn't help. If I was playing in a band I would be very anxious. You'd be wanting to
sending MIDI files back and forward as well anyway. Yeah. There's no live scene for it at the moment where we are. But look here, that's in the future, and we'll probably, if ever that does happen, you get into that, we'll share it on the channel and shit. That'd be a good might be a bit of fun getting into the music as well. Maybe we'll bring back our hip hop group as well, Vinno.
Well, I think we need to do that.
While we're at it,
we need to do a live recording of our theme song as well. So
I think we could play it. Yeah, that's right. You can get the drums in there. I'll get the guitar from back here, and we'll play Fireside Yarns. Maybe put some lyrics to it. Maybe it'll be a new metal hit, a revival of the new metal area.
Might even get a DJ, mate. You can go back to your Bizkit days.
Bizkit. Now, like I don't think you could get a DJ equivalent to DJ Lethal. But anyway, look,
all right,
albums, all right. So do you want to go? Will I go Bizkit and then album, and then you'll go Pennywise and album, or will we go 5 and 5? What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's go. So number one, who's your album that you would suggest to people?
From Limp Bizkit, all right. I think Significant Other is the fucking the white part of the Oreo. Okay. I think if you like Significant Other, there's nookie and break stuff, and there's great tracks on that. And if you want a bit heavier and a bit dirtier and a bit raw, you'll go down to $3 Bill. And if you want a bit more polished and hip hoppy and beatsy, you'll go up to Chocolate Starfish. Mm-hmm. So I think Significant Other for the artwork as well, and the vibe of Limp Bizkit, that really was important to me, and the songs that really grabbed me, I would say Significant Other.
Okay, so there you go. We'll put these in the description, and so you can go through it and have a look.
Vinno will put them in the description. Vinno runs this shit.
All right, so mine would be Pennywise, Straight Ahead, or any of those. I mean, what we talked about for those earlier albums, but for me, definitely Straight Ahead, simply because that's the one that I relate to, that I've got a connection to the most. But yeah, if you want to sort of get an understanding of where we were coming from with our discussion tonight, that's the album that I would go for. Absolutely. Number 2, David.
Metallica. Now this is fucking hard, man. I'm gonna take a Significant Other approach like I did with Limp Bizkit, and I'm gonna do that Oreo beautiful little gushy center. Now, I have a favorite Metallica album, and then I think I have an album that I think is the best Metallica album, and then I have an album that I think, all right, this is kind of a good mix, right?
All right.
So my favorite one, because Four Horsemen was that first song I heard, and Seek and Destroy was the first song I played. That's my favorite. But I think the best Metallica album is Master of Puppets. However, I think if you're getting into Metallica, you should listen to Ride the Lightning. I think it's got a beautiful instrumental in there. It's got a beautiful ballad in there with Fade to Black. An instrumental, obviously, is Call of Cthulhu. But they've also got they've got Creeping Death is in there, and Fight Fire with Fire, and Ride the Lightning title track. And every song on that album is amazing. And it's got a beautiful, cold, electric sound to it. It's eerie, it's windy, it's ice. I think they're the weird, stupid descriptions I would give for the album, but it's fast and it's raw, and it's got everything you need to know what's in store for you from Metallica. If you want more raw, go down to Kill 'Em All. If you want more polished, go up to Puppets. But Ride the Lightning is my recommended album from Metallica.
Cool. Right.
AFI.
So I spoke about Shut Your Mouth and Open Your Eyes before. Obviously, that's not going to be for everybody. If you are into that heavy, in your face, and you want to hear that side of AFI, absolutely, I would suggest that. If you haven't really listened to AFI at all, and you want to listen to a bit of that early stuff where I feel they started to transition, I would suggest Black Sails in the Sunset, or even if you want to go even softer, Sing the Sorrow. Fantastic songs on each of those albums. But for me, and my suggestion would be Shut Your Mouth, Open Your Eyes. AFI. Get on there and check it out.
Here I go with me Black Sabbath. Now, the problem I have is I think every Black Sabbath album up until Heaven and Hell, I think there's a handful of songs on it that I think would be great for anyone to jump into. I really do. But I think if your first album should be Paranoid, and it's because it's got War Pigs, it's got Iron Man on it, it's got Paranoid, it's got Electric Funeral, it's got Fairies Wear Boots on it.
Yes.
It's got Planet Caravan. Did I even say that? I don't know if I did, because that's a beautiful little weird, and it's very important. It's very important because, to me, for two reasons. One is because obviously Pantera covered it, but also it's a beautiful song that played at one of our friends' funerals. Planet Caravan. So that's on that album, Paranoid by Black Sabbath. you can go to Black Sabbath self-titled, which is a great for Black Sabbath self-titled and the song Black Sabbath, the first song ever. That 3-tone down, that's vintage Sabbath, but I don't think if I was introducing someone to that, I'd have them listen from the first album. I think jump in on Paranoid. There's all the hits there. They'll give you a nice variety of Sabbath, and I think go for it. Black Sabbath, Paranoid.
And I think, man, like if you're gonna, like you said, if you're gonna listen to Black Sabbath, you got to listen to that. So that's your starting point.
Yeah.
So you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it, mate.
Yeah. If you don't like Black Sabbath after hearing that album, you're probably not gonna like Black Sabbath, and you're a fucking an idiot. But whatever. But whatever.
All right.
Crack a fucking third beard out in here now before we end the potty. Go on, mate.
Right. I just brought the whole bottle of Johnny in with me. It's just easy.
Oh, mate. That's all going to get smashed in editing. When the real work happens, when I just sit back and annoy Vinno while he's trying to put a video
That's
together.
The fun part, isn't it? Just blast music and get drunk. So Social Distortion was my number 3, and I mentioned the album before, White Light, White Heat, White Noise. I think that as an album is fantastic. I think you're going to get a good variety of songs. There is some bangers on there. So if you're going to give Social Distortion a run, any album really, but yeah, White Light, White Heat, White Noise. Get on there, give it a crack. And I'll go with my number 4, Social Distortion. Socialist, Miles Away. I mentioned it before as well, self-titled. You're going to have a listen to Miles Away. You know, start off in the earlier stuff. They're self-titled. Specifically, This Heart, as I mentioned before, that was a big help for me, and that's a favourite for a few mates and me. Whenever we heard that, you know, just lose your shit. So, Miles Away, self-titled, on my number 4. What do you got, David?
Who the fuck? Hold on. What was me? Are we on 4 now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Pantera or Pogues?
You sort of
Pantera. I haven't done Pantera. Pantera first.
Pogues was last. Yeah.
We'll go in order alphabetically, in alphabetical order, as they say. Pantera again. I'm gonna do the fucking audio shit. I think that's the best way to do it, right? See, my favorite 3 Pantera albums, if I'm not counting the live album 101 Proof, which was fucking amazing, which is the first album I heard really of Pantera. I have to go with, if you're out there, by Vulgar, Display of Power. Now, if you want trashier and faster, go down to Cowboys. Cowboys is my favorite album. It just is. I can't help it. But if you're going to listen to Pantera, listen to Vulgar Display of Power, because you get that, because it's halfway between Cowboys and Far Beyond Driven. And I think if you want a bit faster and a bit more trashier and a bit 80s-er, go down to Cowboys and listen to Cemetery Gates and Cowboys and The Art of Shredding, Domination.
I think they heard Cemetery Gates and they didn't sort of have an interest in Pantera after that.
But some people might think Cemetery Gates is too, you know what I mean? But I think if someone likes Walk, Fucking Hostile, and This Love, I think you can bring them into Pantera.
Fuck, man.
You know what I mean? Or Hollow, Domination. Like, you know what I mean? I think, okay, I look, because it gives you that dime sound. All those, it gives you a bit of ballady shit with This Love. But Walk is the song I find, if I play Walk for someone that like, fucking Pantera makes me want to punch someone in the face. Pantera makes me feel like I can uppercut a gorilla. You know what I mean? That's what Pantera does to you. And it's tough guy metal, and it's like Walk makes you feel like, all right, I get it. So then you can go down to the likes of Cowboys and Cemetery Gate to be like, okay, I appreciate Phil when he was able to hit those high notes and he was able to be that way, and when they were kind of coming out of the trash era. But I think Vulgar is when they found that powerful, groovy blues metal sound. You know what I mean? There was a little bit there on Cowboys, but it wasn't the same.
So,
but Cowboys is my favorite.
Question for you.
Oh, don't make me choose.
No. You don't get. It's just a yes or no. If you ever make it to the UFC, right, and you've got to step into the ring with Conor McGregor, would your intro music be Walk?
Well, am I fighting Conor for a belt? Because I've daydreamed. Don't think I haven't daydreamed this shit.
I know you have.
Are we fighting for the belt? Say Conor beats Masvidal and we're fighting. Oh no, but that's a silver belt, the BMF belt. Say we're fighting for gold. I would always want to come in Ennio Morricone, Ecstasy of Gold from Good and Bad and the Ugly. But if I had to pick a Pantera song, it's Walk. Going down to that ring, that's for sure. Yeah. Unless I'm fighting Cowboy Cerrone, then I'll do Cowboys from Hell.
It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Number 5.
No, are you number 4 now? Because I'm going because
on.
I haven't done me 5 yet either. Did you go before me?
Yeah.
Go son. This is your last one.
So I broke it down, went to just 1 instead of the 6. So my 5th one
very
is
fair.
Terror. And the album I would suggest of that is one with the Underdogs. If you're gonna, that's a fantastic album, in my opinion. It is my opinion. So get on there, have a listen. I will throw in a bonus though, and I'll do that after yours. A couple of bonus albums if you're interested in some local Australian hardcore and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll throw in a couple in the description for you to have a listen to and really get behind them and support. So Dave, you're number 5.
The Pogues. Now, again, you could kind of find some songs off all Pogues albums that are good. You know what I mean? But I think if you're going to introduce someone again to the Pogues, I think a good idea would be to have the album If I Should Fall From Grace With God. Now, you've got the title track If I Should Fall From Grace With God. It's upbeat, but it's experimental, the whole album. So if you Fiesta is a song on the album that's kind of got some Spanishy feel to it, and that's a fucking fun ripper song, and that reminds me, it used to be one of the last songs that played at a pub in Dublin that before and it was chaotic, and it would be before before fucking last drinks, and there'd be a time when the song when it's a bit of a breakdown and then everyone goes crazy at the end. Try Fiesta off of I Should Fall From Grace With God, the title track. You've got Turkish Song of the Damned. You've got Fairy Tale New York, which was the big song. It was like a Christmas song with Shane MacGowan and Kirsty MacColl. Like there's an amazing amount of songs on it, and I think that's a great intro album for the Pogues. If I Should Fall From Grace With God. Some mentions, Rum Sodomy and the Lash is a favorite of mine, but I think the best one to listen to first would be If I Should Fall From Grace With God. And if you're going to pick a song, maybe pick If I Should Fall From Grace With God or Turkish Song of the Damned. And if you're feeling like something wacky, Fiesta.
Right.
If I Should Fall From Grace With God.
Just to say it once more.
So good. So good.
All right. So that finishes us up for this episode. I think we've opened up some doorways, man, for directions we can go down with plenty of others.
Well, now we got bands we can do whole episodes about, because each one of these we can just dig into. We've got different genres now. We can go down that classic rail of Creedence and stuff. And
mate, that's opened up a doorway altogether, hasn't it? But as always, we would love to hear your feedback and your input on what you like, and whether you disagree with some of our opinions there, or the bands that we like. You might have a favorite album of one of those bands. Get in the comments, get in there and talk. Shout out to
maybe you're one of those weirdos who doesn't like Limp fucking Bizkit.
Yeah, so Dave's
what do you want from us? Album reviews?
Dave's taking fight offers at the moment. So if you don't like Limp Bizkit, get in there if you want to.
If you don't like Limp Bizkit or Creedence Clearwater, we will fight you live on this episode. Next episode. What are we on now? This is 5, isn't it?
Yeah. Episode 6.
And Dave fights for the
McDonald's. Masks on. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us again for another episode. Please get in and show some support in the comments. We do really appreciate that. Thanks for subscribing. Don't forget to, if you haven't already, get down there, like and subscribe. And yeah, hope to see you on the next episode. Dave, anything else?
No, listen to Limp Bizkit and have a safe next week until next time.
Absolutely, guys. Yeah, tune in next week. Different episode. Getting towards the business end of the season, I suppose, season 1. So yeah, it's been an interesting start. We're still making some improvements. We're still getting there. So bear with us. We do hope you enjoy it, and we appreciate the feedback. So.
Just one thing, I guess what the aim, isn't it, to maybe have a Halloween episode?
That's the goal, isn't it?
Do you want to see a Halloween episode? Do you want me and Vinno to dress up on the last fucking episode as our favorite fucking Halloween character? Do you think that'd be cool? Or do you think...
Have you seen my head, man? I'm fucking scary enough as it is. Like,
do you want to hear about Afghanistan too? Do you want to hear about Conor McGregor again? Because I've got about 5 more episodes in me of Conor McGregor, everybody. Do you want a whole episode on Limp Bizkit? Get in the comments, like Vinno said. Hit the like button. Let us know what direction you want us to go. And we're going to be experimenting anyway, because this is the cutting our teeth season. But yeah, that's enough from me. It's enough from both of us. So thanks again for tuning in, guys. See you next week. Cheers.